Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers. That's not just a line from an ad, it's a mirror held up to Steve Jobs' life. He was kicked out of his own company, meditated in India, walked barefoot through Silicon Valley. But this same man brought the world the iPhone, the iPad, and Pixar. Today on BookLia, we dive deep into the extraordinary and often complicated life of Steve Jobs, based on Walter Isaacson's best-selling biography. Let's dive in. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson was published on October 24, 2011, just weeks after Jobs passed away. The book was built on over 40 interviews with Jobs himself, and more than 100 conversations with his family, friends, co-workers, and even rivals. Jobs personally chose Isaacson, known for his acclaimed biographies of Einstein and Franklin, and gave him full access to his life. But he had one request: tell the truth, not a tribute. Jobs didn't want a polished legacy. He wanted people to see the real Steve Jobs, brilliant, obsessive, flawed, and driven. And that's exactly what this biography delivers. It doesn't shy away from his temper or coldness. It paints a raw, unfiltered portrait of a man who fused creativity with technology and changed the world in the process. Steve Jobs was born in 1955 and was immediately placed for adoption. His biological father was a Syrian immigrant. His adoptive parents, Paul and Clara Jobs, were humble, working-class Californians. From the very beginning, Steve felt different. At school, he was restless. He hated conformity. He pulled pranks. But beneath the rebellion was a sharp and curious mind. At age 12, Jobs cold-called Bill Hewlett, yes, the Hewlett in Hewlett-Packard, asking for spare parts for a school project. He not only got the parts, but also landed a summer job at HP. That builder's spirit, restless, bold, never left him. Steve enrolled at Reed College but dropped out after just one semester. Still, he kept attending classes out of sheer curiosity, especially a calligraphy class, which would later shape the beautiful typefaces of the Mac. He then traveled to India, walked barefoot, lived on fruit, and meditated in ashrams. He wasn't searching for tech. He was searching for truth. Jobs once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And slowly, he was becoming one of them. In 1976, Jobs partnered with his brilliant friend Steve Wozniak. Woz was the engineer. Jobs was the visionary, the dreamer, the pitchman, the perfectionist. Together, in Jobs' parents' garage, they built the Apple I. Then came the Apple II, one of the first truly successful personal computers. By the age of 23, Jobs was a millionaire. By 25, his company was worth $2 billion. But wealth wasn't his goal. He wanted to change the world and control the details. This made him a visionary and a nightmare to work with. In 1985, Steve Jobs clashed with Apple's board and its CEO. He was pushed out of his own company. Imagine that, being fired from your own dream. But instead of giving up, Jobs transformed. He later said, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have happened to me." He founded Next, a computer company with sleek design but low sales. However, its software later became the foundation of Mac OS. More importantly, Jobs bought a struggling animation studio from George Lucas and turned it into Pixar. He invested $10 million, and in 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first full-length 3D animated movie. It redefined cinema, and Jobs became a billionaire. These so-called exile years? They weren't wasted. They were transformational. In 1997, Apple was on the verge of collapse. They brought Jobs back. And he went to work. He simplified the product line, killed off clutter, launched the iMac, then the iPod, then iTunes, then the iPhone, and finally the iPad. One innovation after another. But Jobs didn't just create products, he created experiences. He fused design, function, and emotion in a way the tech world had never seen. He once said, "Design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works." And Apple became the most valuable company in the world. Let's now explore 5 of the most powerful life lessons from the journey of Steve Jobs. 1. Trust your inner voice. Steve Jobs didn't live his life by the rulebook. He wasn't guided by what the market wanted or what society expected. Instead, he tuned into something deeper, his inner voice. Jobs believed that intuition was more powerful than intellect. Even when he dropped out of college, even when he traveled to India seeking spiritual clarity, he was listening to something that others couldn't hear. He once said, "Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become." And he lived by this. Think about the iPhone, the iPad, even the Mac itself. None of these were developed from focus groups. They were born from his vision. The lesson? Don't ignore the whisper inside you. When everyone tells you to go left, but your gut says right, have the courage to trust it. Your intuition may be the truest compass you'll ever have. 2. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. To Steve, simplicity wasn't about removing things. It was about finding clarity. He once walked into Apple's design lab, saw a prototype filled with buttons and options, and said no. He wanted one button. Why? Because he believed that technology should be invisible, that the interface should fade away and leave only the experience. From the original Macintosh to the iPod's iconic click wheel, to the seamless beauty of the iPhone, Jobs constantly demanded elegance. He borrowed a quote from Leonardo da Vinci. "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." He didn't just want products that worked, he wanted products that felt like magic. The takeaway? Whether in design, communication, or even life, clarity wins. Complexity confuses. Simplicity connects. 3. Innovation means saying no. Many think innovation means adding more. Jobs thought the opposite. To him, true innovation meant relentless focus. He famously said, "Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things." When he returned to Apple in 1997, the company was bloated with product lines. He slashed 70% of them. Why? So his teams could focus on making just a few things insanely great. He refused to be everything for everyone. And because of that, Apple became essential to many. The deeper lesson? In a world of endless distractions, clarity comes from elimination. The more you say no, the more powerful your yes becomes. 4. Embrace failure. Steve Jobs failed. Big time. He was fired from the very company he built. His company next struggled. The Apple Lisa flopped. But he didn't hide from these failures, he grew from them. In fact, Jobs once said that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to him. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. That period led to Pixar. It led to his personal transformation. And eventually, it led him back to Apple, stronger, wiser, and more focused than ever. The truth is, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. The message? Don't fear falling. Fear standing still. Every setback can be a setup for a greater comeback, if you're willing to learn. 5. Live as if you'll die soon. Perhaps the most powerful lesson Jobs ever shared was about mortality. In his 2005 Stanford commencement address, he delivered words that shook the world. "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." After his cancer diagnosis, Steve lived with urgency. He asked himself every morning, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do?" If the answer was no too many days in a row, he knew something had to change. This wasn't morbid. It was empowering. Because when you realize your time is limited, you stop wasting it. Jobs didn't waste his time chasing approval. He built things that mattered. He loved deeply. He led boldly. Jobs battled a rare form of pancreatic cancer for years. Yet he led Apple almost until his final breath. He died in October 2011, leaving behind the iPhone, the Mac, Pixar, the App Store, and most of all, a way of thinking that fused art with engineering. He wasn't perfect, but he made us believe in magic. And sometimes, that's what changes the world. So tell us, what part of Steve Jobs' story inspired you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more powerful stories, deep insights, and life-changing lessons, subscribe to BookLia and join us every week as we explore the lives of world-changing figures. This is BookLia, one book, big insights.